That's good.
All right. Good evening once again. I hope my audio is good. Please let me to confirm.
Yes, 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 it is.
All right. So I give us an assignment to work on creating web pages, and that was supposed to mark the end of HTML and basic CSS revision that we have been before we dive into JavaScript. So
Yeah.
I noticed it was only one person that actually submitted the assignment. So I wouldn't know whether you have done yours as well.
Okay, to be honest, what all those things, I think I know how to do them, and I've done them before previously in the other class. I remember I've shown you that before. But these ones, what I'm doing, I'm just collecting the it's something I can even do within a day to get to that stage. So it's not much of a problem for me. What I'm just doing is I'm just collecting the step by
Okay.
step, so that
Well, the we called it revision. So,
mhm,
uh, to have been better, we will see the ones you have done, just
before.
to give us assurance that you have actually
Okay.
implemented that.
Okay, what will
Because
happen now?
why
This
I
new
have to
one that you're
come
talking
back
about now.
because of
Okay,
some
this
of
new
us,
one now.
particularly you and one other guy like that,
Okay,
that is actually the host of this particular time. I
I
merged
joined. Yeah,
your
I
group
noticed.
to this type, so I feel that taking him to
Hmm.
his JavaScript without completing this will be a challenge to him. So that I wanted us to take
Yes, yes.
advantage of his class for the revision, but there's no problem. So this is what we have been able to develop so far. I hope you can still hear me, sir.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing it.
Are you still hearing me?
I'm hearing you, sir. Very well.
Can you still hear me?
I'm hearing you, sir. Yeah, yeah, yes. I'm hearing you.
Okay. So this is what we have been able to put together, and this is our index page. So we have our navigation link somewhere here. I remember I
Mhm.
also taught us how to create the link and add content to all the pages, and that was where the assignment was given. So I expected that as we are journeying back tonight, all our navigation link should have gotten contents. So I'll leave us with that to continue uh, mastering that, because there's still going to be the general projects probably after the JavaScript section. So
Okay.
I will advise us to continue to work on that project, because
No
each
problem,
and
sir.
every one of us, we present it here before we go to the back end. And then it's going to be compulsory. So I will advise us to continue developing different types of websites using the HTML, the CSS, until we start implementing JavaScript. So tonight, we are looking at the last aspects of HTML and CSS, or let's say, yes, both of them. The CSS we have implemented so far, they are referred to as CSS 2.0 in web development. They are referred to CSS 2.0, which are also classified under basic CSS. So in the course of applying those CSS, we have used some of the intermediates and the advanced. We have another type of CSS, which is referred to as the CSS 3.0. at the same time is usually captured as CSS animation. So that is the topic of tonight. I just want to start, if possible, and finish CSS animation. Is a very simple concept with the knowledge we have already gained or gathered from the previous basic CSS. So like I said, we are focusing on CSS animation. CSS animation. So what I'm going to do, I'll just create a different file so that we can focus on just what we are going to learn. And please, I want to encourage each and every one of us that at the end of this training, whichever website you have developed, you go and implement this set of CSS on it. Right? So let me just name it animation.html. Animation.html. And I'm going to use external CSS as well. So let me create. So the topic, like I said, we are looking at CSS animation. That is our topic tonight or in this section. So let me quickly create a different CSS file and name it animation.css. Of course, I have to link both files together. In my head section, type link, then call the CSS. Sorry. All right, so let's start with the definition. What is CSS animation? So CSS animation is a technique used to create, let me say, effects or motion effects on our contents or HTML elements without involving or bothering JavaScript. Before the invention of this advanced or CSS animation, every form of animation you see on a website is usually done with JavaScript. But after the introduction of this CSS 3.0, which is the CSS animation, JavaScript was a bit relief from minor or engaging motion or effects that you could see in a website. So just to complete that definition, I say CSS animation is a technique used to create animation on the web or on web pages using cascading style sheets. So one of the advantage of this is that it allows you to create complex and engaging animation or effects without the need of JavaScript, like I have explained before. So let's quickly talk about some of the key concepts. Some of the key concepts of CSS. The key concepts of CSS. So the first one is a keyframe. Keyframe. So these are some of the terms you cannot escape when you are implementing CSS 3.0, which is the same thing as the CSS animation. So one of the key concepts is what? Keyframe. So what is keyframe? The keyframe define, see if I can be fast, define the starts and the end points of an animation. So that is so where you want to animate your HTML content, which could be, it could be image, it could be links or button, it could be paragraph, it could be heading. So whatever content within your web page that you want to animate using keyframe as one of the key concepts, it allows you to define the starts and the end. That is, an element display can start in a particular way or style, and then before it end or towards the end, it can transit to another style. So that is the beauty of this keyframe as one of the key concepts of CSS animation. So most of the websites you visit these days, you enter website pages and you see, a kind of advanced motion on those elements. That's most time implemented with this keyframe. You see the motion breaking into different points. That is between 0 to 20%. Maybe an element can display a particular color. Between 20 to 40%, it will change to another color. Between 40 to 50%, another color. Between 50 to 60%, another color, depending on how you distribute the interval. So when you see such effects, that is CSS animation keyframe. We are going to see all of this practically. So I just want to quickly give us the background aspect of it before we go into the application. So the next key feature of CSS animation is animation property. Animation properties. Animation properties. So what do you mean by animation properties? So animation properties specify the animation duration, timing, function. Let me see if I can find it. Specify the animation duration, animation timing, animation function, animation delay, animation iteration. All right. So what we are practically saying here is that you can program your animation on any of those HTML elements in such a way that you can define the duration. How long is that effect expected to last? That is, when the user gets to the page, let's say it is an image that you must have programmed this particular effect on. When the user gets to the page, it can take like 2 minutes or 1 or few seconds before the effect starts displaying. That is delay. So one can decide to say, okay, before you start playing the effects, delay for 2 seconds. So you are only trying to make the website engaging and entertaining to your users or visitors, because it look more interesting to a lot of web users when they see that the website's action varies or changes per time. It make more sense. People don't like, meeting a particular effect. Just imagine you visit the website, you see an image rotating, you are there for 1 hour, that same rotation style, at some point it can get boring. So you can use this CSS animation to program it in a way that there should be some delay, And even as display is going to come up, it should not last more than maybe 2 minutes, because most of these effects, they are mostly used for advertising contents. Maybe there's a promo that you want to flash. As soon as they get to the website, you just want the promo, the element to what? To flash like that. So you don't want it to stay too long, except where you decided based on the content wrapped in it. So that is the duration. Then the timing is talking about how many times an effect can start and get to the end and stop there until the user refreshes the page before it will start again. But we can program it, like I said, if it's an advert, that as long as the users are on that page, you want the advert to continue to watch, to play. So that kind of advert, you program, like you do your calculation, like maybe like 5 times. You know that an average web visitor will not spend more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes on a particular page. They will always want to go to the next page. So you program the number of time that could span across that stipulated time. So that is the animation time. Then the function is where you are specifying a particular function on it outside the display. So that is the function. Then iteration is talking about the how it's going to what pan across the entire event. So we will look at all these. I just want us to capture them to know that one of the key feature or concept of animation, number one is keyframe. So we must know what keyframes are, which I said define the start point and the end point of your animation. Then we must also be familiar with animation properties. And then the third one I want to talk about is the third one is transformation. So we must also understand what is called transformation in animation or CSS animation. So animation or transformation apply transformations such as translate. Let me mention them because you see me using them. Translate, scale. So you say we have scale, we have rotate, we have translate, we have scale, we have rotate. So all these are sub elements of transformation. Now, transformation has to do with the sizing and the changes. Now, you can scale. When you say transform, scale, you can say transform, translate, transform, rotate. So these are like values that can be used once the principal animation property is called. So when you say transform, you now specify, okay, yes, some changes are going to occur. Is the change is going to be a rotation, or is going to be the increment or the decrement of the size of that element, or is going to be resizing it? That is where transform, rotate comes in. Transform, scale is talking about resizing it. So what you usually achieve with width and height, you can call an image and say what? Transform, transform, scale, and then you put your value. That can either scale it to be bigger or scale it to be smaller. So these are some of the concepts that we should know. Now, let's quickly talk about types of CSS animation. So like I said, I'm just running through the theoretical aspects of this that we need to know. types of CSS animation. Types of CSS animation. So there are various types of CSS animation. So the first one is what we call transition. Transition. So what do we mean by transition? So transition creates simple. Transition creates simple. Transition creates simple animation that transits, that transition between two states, between two states. So that is one type of animation. So you need to understand that we have transition as one of the type. So when you hear developer using or adding effects, which are the animation to their content, is either transition effects or keyframe effects. So the second one is the keyframe, which we have already highlighted, keyframe animation. So all our entire, remember, transform is not animation directly. Transform focuses on resizing, rotating, changing. When we talk about animation, we're talking about motion, like an object zooming in gradually or zooming out gradually or rotating continuously. So these are animation. So the reason why we brought in transform here, because we are talking about at times when these are happening, the object can increase while the animation is on it. That is why it's as if we mention it. But when we talk about the type, it's not actually type of animation. The type of animation we have are transition and keyframe. So what are keyframe? Like I specified before, keyframe creates complex. So this is what actually wants to pick out from this entire explanation. Animation. So you can see the difference now. The transition is just a simple effect, while keyframe is for complex. What is the complexity there? You can break your animation in various points or interval. That is what makes it complex, which the transition cannot actually achieve. So now we now talk about the animation properties. Animation property. If you are using the keyframe, now that we understand them, if we are using the keyframe, then we need to talk about their animation properties. Animation properties, very important. So number one, we have animation name. You cannot use keyframe without talking about the name is a criteria. You're going to see it because the name, you add the name to the actual element, and then it is that name that you will use to communicate with the keyframe, so that the keyframe will know which of the elements is to apply those words, various program animation effect on. So by definition, they specify the animation name, specifies the, let's say, specify the name of the animation. Specify the name of the animation. So we have animation duration. I've explained them. I will just run through them. Maybe I should just be dictating them when you go through the video. You can write them down so that I can get to the practical, because that is where I am more interested in. I just want all because by the time you see me in that particular aspect, calling animation name, animation duration, then you will not be confused. That is why I'm running through them. So under the same animation property, remember I said the first one is animation name. The second one is animation duration. I will just read through it. So the animation duration specifies the length of time, it takes to complete one cycle of animation. Specify the length of time it takes to complete one cycle of animation. That is when we specify the duration. So the third one is animation hyphen timing hyphen function. So what does this does? Animation timing to function specifies the timing function of the animation, such as what? When you see properties like is in, when you see is out, this is talking about animation timing function. Or when you see infinite, that is what? It does not have an end, it will just continue. Like that situation where you are publishing an advert that shouldn't end as long they are still on that page. You can put what? Infinite, like that. So animation delay is the fourth one, animation delay. So animation delay specify the delay before the animation starts. Specify the delay before the animation starts, like I explained from the beginning. Somebody can get to your web page and spend like 1 minute, depending on how you program it, before the person starts seeing that animation. So that will look very interesting. So the next one is number 5, which is animation. Animation iteration. So what is animation iteration? Animation iteration counts. Animation iteration count. There should be also hyphen here. This is how it's written. Animation iteration counting or count specify the number of times the animation should repeat. Specify the number of times the animation should repeat. I hope we are following. Can I get a response from somebody? Just to also verify if my audio is still good. I hope we are following. Are we together? Please, let's respond
Yes,
fast.
sir. Yes, sir.
All
Yes, sir.
right, all right. Okay. So from everything I've explained, now we want to do some practical to see how you will see me communicating all these properties, types of animation that I've explained so far. So let's assume, because it starts by creating your HTML element. So I want to see if I have an image here. Good, I have an image here. So let's say I'm using an image. I'm going to use an image sometime and also use container elements like div and also use text or buttons, because these are some of the things that we are expected to target with this animation, like the button. When somebody click on maybe the submit button, you should see a kind of effect. Or when somebody hovers on a picture within your web page, they should also see this effect. So you have to strategically know which of the elements you are to animate. It's not all the content in your web page you animate. You end up distracting the users. So let me give this class, let's say needs. That is the class name. And then let me call an image there, because these are things we know. So let's quickly check the front end and see the appearance, because the good thing is that that element, being it text, being it image, being it button you want to animate, you need to make sure that you standardize it first. You style it to a very good appearance before the animation comes on it. That is the beauty. You don't just go and add the animation without making it look presentable. So I can go to my CSS, since we have created CSS. So I'll call it with the class name, which is what? Anit. Anit, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is the class name. So I will first of all specify some actual width of this. So I want this to be 500 PS. And then the height should be, let's say, 500. So it's going to be square image. Then I can also add some border radius. So you can see all this, I have not started considering the animation. I'm just trying to upgrade it or standardize it to a very user-friendly appearance before that. So I would say border radius, just give me a radius of 10 PS. So let's go back and check at this. I think I need to add border so that we can see the radius. So I would say border. Border, of course, the thickness of the border line, the type of the line should be solid. Should be solid. The color of the line should be red, just for visibility. Okay, so you can see our radius. Now we want to, you can see that this image is static. It's not in any way entertaining the users. So this is where you have to bring in animation. So I want in a situation whereby when they hover on this particular image, or as soon as they get to this page, there should be an effect that will come on this particular image. So what I'm going to do, go back to my CSS, and then I'll simply add animation name here. So you can see it now. So the animation name comes in the actual object, not in the keyframe. You only reference it in the keyframe. So here my animation name can just be, let's see what, example. Animation name can just be example. And then before the keyframe, I want to specify the animation delay, the animation time, function, all the property. So I will say, okay, animation duration. How long is going to what? Display. Animation duration, let's say 2 seconds. So you can increase it. Then I also want to add animation time function to be what? Is in and out. That's the combination of what? In. So in other words, it's going to open gradually, and then towards the end, it will increase. That's what is in and out. So now I also want to add animation delay. Animation delay. So I'm only using this to verify some of those theoretical terms we have been talking about. So let's say I just want it to be 1 second. 1 second. Now, this is the actual element. So you now come outside the coiling bracket. That's what the code block of that particular CSS to define the keyframe. Then the keyframe, you will now say at keyframe, at keyframe, at keyframes. So once you have called it, so how will this know which of the elements that's animation is going to be applied to? You reference it with the same name that you use, the same name. So the name is what you are actually using to connect the keyframe to the element you are talking to. Then before you create what? The calling bracket. Now inside it, when we define the keyframe, we talk about helping us to specify the stats and the what? The end. That is, we can break the effect into different what? Segments. So now we are looking at 0 to 100, like I was saying. So I will say at 0%, at 0%, What do I want? That is, I'm nesting another word, selector inside it at 0%. What I want, transform. So you can see the way I am communicating those transform. That is, I want some changes. Transform. So which of the value? Remember I said transform has 3 to 4 value. We have transform, translate, transform, scale, transform, rotate. So what effect do you want at 0%? Is going to what? Transform X. Transform S, that is horizontal. Transform S to what angle? To what angle? Angle what? 0. Angle what? 0. Angle what? 0. So you are still inside the keyframe bracket. So that one is for the first one. Now you come outside to define another percent. Let's say at 50%. At 50%, what appearance do you want? At 50%, I want transform also. Transform, but transform translates S also. Transform translate S. And what is going to be the angle or the size? Transform translate 100, let's say PS. So these values are not fixed, depend on you. So I'll say, okay, so you can see the way I'm breaking it now. So I have an effect, I have animation between 0 to 50, and then I want to create another animation between 50 to 100. So I'll come out here. I am still inside this one. So I'm just nesting all the what? The breaking points in the keyframe. So I'll say, okay, I can say 70, do 80, depending on you, but I just want to stop at 100. So towards the end, which is when it's completing, then transform, translates, transform, translate S, and then the angle will come back to 0. So you're going to have an interval of movement. So if I go back to the image now, so we have to specify how this effect will be called. Is it when on hover that this will happen? So that is what we need to define. Now, for us to define, we need to look at the element. So what I'm going to do, let me add at hover, that is when this effect will be called. So at hover, we all know the structure of at hover. So if I go back to the front end and I hover on this, let's see, I hope my connection is good. Come in. I expected it to, let me see, example. So let me go back to the HTML to check my, then the class name is, okay, let me see if I can reference it to the, since I have just one image there. Okay, so I'm coming, let me see. Okay, so you can see, remember that we put 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds, you can see the movement of the object. So if I want to manipulate it, animation delay, we put 1 second. Let me put like, sorry, the duration, we put 2 seconds. Let me increase it to like 10. So that you know whether if you increase the number, it will increase the speed or it will reduce. So you can see it. So the more you increase the number of your duration, the slower it is. So we should take note of that. So if I put 1 second here, just 1 second, then I get to the page, I refresh. Remember that there's a delay of, so you can see that what is faster. So if I put, let's say, 0.3 second. If I get to the page, refresh it, you can see that it's faster. So that is the logic. So I'll give us some minutes, 10 minutes for everybody to give me something like this. Are you all here? So I'll leave my code on the screen. Please, 10 minutes classwork. For those of us that are joining with our laptop, just quickly add an image and add the animation quickly. The next 10 minutes. So when I come back, I look at another object. So we have different elements we want to use to particularize this set of animation. So the classwork starts now. All right, so so that is one way of applying the animation. So we're going to look at creating the bouncing elements, because depending on the type of animation you want. So I'll go back to my HTML and create it. So let's assume that I have a div. I have a div with a class name, bounce, let's say what? Just bounce. And then just to add content that will be bouncing, let's say it could be your writer, welcome to Digital Z Hub, but do that here, welcome to Digital Z Hub. So let's assume this is our HTML content. So if we go to the front end to see what we have there, so this is the text. So I just want to create an effect that will make it to bounce. So in case we want that kind of bouncing effect using the same keyframe. So I'll go back to remember the selector name, so it's going to be bounce. So I will now come here and say, if I want to define its appearance, so I need to say, okay, dot what? Bounce, dot bounce, dot bounce. I hope I'm correct with the, okay, so dot bounce. It's a div, but we added text. So all I need to do is to specify the name, the animation name. So I will say animation. If I don't want to add other properties, so I can just say animation name, let's say flip, for example. Then if I like, I add what? Animation delay or animation duration. So those ones that are optional. But if you want to add them, they have to come inside the main object. So I will just come here and add my art keyframe, because that is the only thing I need to be able to implement the keyframe. Is I must assign name to the element itself, because it is that name that I will use to connect it. So at keyframe, then the same thing that we did, I can say at 0%. What effect do I want? At 0%, I can say transform. Here I'm dealing with rotation. Transform, rotate Y. That is vertical. And then the angle is going to be at 0%. Okay, so now I'm still inside here. So I'll create another interval of motion. At 100%, what do I want? The same rotation, Control C, and then paste. Then I'll change here to, let's say 360 degree. You type DEG, 360 degree. And then this is just 2. You can see that from 0 to 100. So if I go back to the front end now, let's see if we'll have it. Okay, so let me check again. think we are correct. Rotate Y, rotate DG. Let's put some let's put animation animation duration. Let's say 2 seconds. See it. Animation duration. So you can see it. You can see what happened there. So what it was waiting for is for us to instruct it duration. So it required duration before it moves. So if I refresh again, you see that effect. So when they get to the page, they just see a text like that. That text could be, it has to be calculated. Maybe is a very important advert that you want them to see. Because if they enter the page without any motion on that, they may not really pay attention to it. So your own way of programming it as a web developer is to catch attention, maybe like promo. So once they enter, now you can see that it's just going one cycle and stopping. Now, if I come here now and I say, okay, specify animation time function or iteration count, it should be 3 times. If I go back there now, watch what is going to happen. 1, 2, and then 3. So if you want to really keep them long on it, so you put, like I was saying, you increase the number of what animation counts iteration, so that at least it should be able to what to pass the message you are establishing. So I can now say, okay, I want to add animation delay. I can say, okay, I want to add animation delay. Before that effect starts, it should take 1 second. So let's go back there and refresh. You see, to take that 1 second before it starts the effect. Right? I hope we are still here. I hope we are still here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So another thing again, I can say, okay, it's moving too fast. It's moving too fast. I want it to go slowly. I'll say what? Animation time function. I'll say, okay, is in. So let's go back there and refresh and see. Did you see is in? So is when it starts, it will start slow and then it will just increase. So let's say is in. Let me use let me use is in and out. Refresh. So the beginning will appear to be a little bit slow, and then it will now what? Pick up. So these are the properties that I've explained so far. So now I can say, okay, you can see that what? Between 0 to this, I want the color. I want the color. You can declare more than one property. I want the color to be blue, and between this region, I want the color to be maybe yellow. So if you go back there now, let's refresh and see. You see it. So when you see as it's moving, it's changing the what? The color. So you can also add more in between. You can say, okay, within this region, the font size should be bigger, should be 40 ps. Then within this region, the font size should be maybe 12 ps. So those same properties that you can communicate them so long you have defined the interval. Let's go there, refresh again. You see it. When it starts, it will be big and then it will continue because between that 0 to 50. So I can say, okay, I want it to be slower. So I will just come here and say, okay, between 0 to 50%, just like what we did, 0 to 50%, I want another effect. So what do I want here? Transform transform scale. Scale maybe 1.5. That is the size. That is the size. So if I come here, did you see what happened? Transform scale. You can see the scale have altered what? The entire motion. So depend on how you want to manipulate it. So it's just for you to understand the structure. You can actually develop these animation effects that are there. You can get them through ChatGPT. Once you can describe, okay, you want ChatGPT write 5 different text animation effects using keyframe, you get them. Okay, so I have to do this one manually so that you understand the structure. The structure you must take home is the actual element must have what? The animation name. It is whatever name that you give here that you supply to the what? To the keyframe. And then the keyframe, you can break it into different what? Percentage. So let me show us one thing here. I can decide to program the entire web page to be this background to be displaying different background color at different what? Percentage. So what I'm going to do in that case, you are going to come here and do something like what? Body, and then you give it a name. There must be what? Animation name. So let's say animation name BG. Animation name is BG. So let's add duration so that it can move. Animation duration. Let me just add 1 second. So I can also copy this keyframe section automatically just to save my time. And they come outside the actual declaration block paste. Then here, remember that I have to remove this flip, align it with the name here, BG. And then what I want is background color. So at 0% background color. So this is still the same, your CSS basic knowledge. At 0% background color, you can say RGBA, depending on the kind of color method you want to use. So I want to use RGBA 255, 0, 0. That is red. So at this percent, at this, so let me copy this and paste it and just change the color. Don't you see? So at this percentage to be the background color, let me just change it here quickly. It should be blue. Then the same thing at this region, I want the color to be this. So if I go back to the page now, you see what happened? You see what happened? See that flash? So sometimes when you enter some pages, you see that kind of effect. Now, it just came once and disappeared. Because why? Because let's add animation iteration count and make it all and just say what? Iteration count infinite. Because as long they are on that page, the effect should continue to display. And this will have a way of entertaining them, particularly people who are not web developer. When they enter this place, they wow, look at the effect. The page is changing. But at the same time, you have to apply this with caution because it can end up distracting the people from the main content you are publishing. So you have to do your calculation, whether is it necessary based on the type of website. For like e-commerce websites, you don't need too much distraction. Let them focus on the products. But if it is portfolio, maybe all those musical websites, like maybe website for an artist, all these things are needed, all these, movements. Please, am I communicating? Are we following?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you can think of whatever you want to add it. Let me see if I can cover for buttons, like clickable button. Let me see if I can cover for that as well. So I'll go back to my HTML. So let's say we have, I think this is going to be the last one. So let's say I have an anchor tag, and I have an anchor tag, probably is going to link us to about. think I have about page here. Okay, so say about. Okay, so let's say about us, and then I'll go to my CSS. So let me use comment, adding animation to button. Right, so since we have only one anchor tag there, so let me give it the actual style first. So the actual style, let's say display inline block. Let's say some padding. Let's specify some padding. So I believe you know all this. I don't want to waste my time. These are basic CSS we have already covered. Then let me add some border. Let's say in fact none. Don't want border there. Let's see the appearance of it here first. So this is it. I think let's temporarily comment out the other one. So if I just change only one thing here now, it will stop because it no longer see it. Remember in case I want to bring it back. So border radius, all this, like I advised us, we're only trying to determine the actual appearance, because if the object is not appearing well, most of your effects will not make sense. So background color is Mr. Austin see here. Hope he has not disappeared. Let me use I believe we still know using the hexadecimal method to color. So let's say a cursor, so that cursor. So when they touch it, it will show that hand sign. That is the meaning. It's a pointer. And then we want to add some transition. Remember, this is where I'm communicating transition, since we have not used transition. Transition is the background color we want to transit. Of the background color transit for how long? 0.3 seconds, example. And then we add how will it is. So we have added time function. So we are using one stone to kill two birds. That is what we have here. I have this out somewhere here. So now I will now go to how do I want to reflect it. I will use over effects. I will use over effect before the keyframe. So the over effect, I'm wondering why I'm getting this. Is there anyone that is not close? It probably because of that keyframe that I modified. So let me just add some effect. Of course, over. So we just want to make it complex. Then over, and then the background color for over will be different from. So let's say 2, 3, 5, 2, 7, 6. Want to know why that's why this is showing this. Could there be any? Okay, let me just a over. Okay, so let me see. Can debug it later. So animation. Let's see if one of the properties is not properly closed. It's unexpected. This one is for the background. Let me comment the whole of this out first and see. Oh, there's no comment here. Okay. So animation name. Let's say the animation name is let's say button. And then finally, let's add the at keyframe. So at keyframes, we supply the name, which is button. Then let's define some transformation. So transform at what? 0%. At 0%. At 0%. Transform at 0%. Transform scale. Transform scale 1. Then at 50%. At 50%, transform scale 1.1. We just want a kind of gradual what? Increment. Control C. So let me just make this 1.1. Then at 100%, still inside the keyframe at 100%. At 100%. At 100% is 1. So it comes back to 1. So we just want that. So this is going to, now let's go to the front end and check what we have here. On hover, remember, effect has not started. So let's see. Over. No animation duration. No animation duration. So let's add animation duration here. Animation duration. Let's just say 1 second. Okay, so you can see it. You can see the way it's going up. Once just focus on that text, you can see that it's just going up. It's just going up. So that is it. If you also want to add, we want it to display continuously, we will not say what? Animation iteration counts, and say what? Night. Let's go back there, refresh, and observe. So it will continue. I think only 2 of them that we added that. You hover on it. So any questions? So this is where I'm going to draw the curtain. So what you do, like I said, these things are very simple, just for you. I've laid the foundation. I have given us the structure. You now know how to communicate animation. Then you can deepen your research to know different animations. There are different effects. There are different effects out there. So just for you to know how to go about it. Any question, please?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm with you, ma.
Hello, sir. All
Yeah.
these CSS that you commented out now, when you send the video now, it will look confusing.
Okay, let me bring them out. Let me bring them back so that you not look like a comment.
So you get.
Yes, yes. I'm bringing them back now. What did I do now? That highlighted SS. I'm bringing them back because that time I wanted the let me refresh, let me load the file again. I wanted us to focus on only to avoid the background distraction. Okay, so I will be able to see the text. So I think I will leave it like that because of, like you said. So any question, Mr. Austin, are you still here? So please make sure that you create that page, that initial assignment I give to us. Let's go back and add animation to some of those contents. And then we should be creative in selecting which elements to animate, like I've advised. Mr. Austin is not here. So we call it a session to go and work on it. So which means that our next meeting, we are entering JavaScript. I'm starting afresh with JavaScript. So that will be our next meeting by God grace. If that class,
So we are done with HTML and CSS now.
yes, so we have done HTML. You know, we have done HTML before. We are just doing revision. All these things we have done there before, it's just revision that we are doing. That is why it's that
Yes,
fast.
yes.
Yeah, so that is why I rushed it because it's revision. It's more or less of revision. We've done all this. So we'll start properly from JavaScript and the speed will be slow and steady because of some of us that were not in that class at all. So if the class goes on Saturday, because I'm still not sure, but I'll communicate to us. Talking about Friday next week. Okay, yeah, Friday I should be around. Yeah, Friday. I think it's Saturday that we want to travel. All right, so please, I want to beg us to make sure that we practice. Let's go and add all these animations, research for more. That is how you learn. All right, so good night, everyone.
Good night, sir.
All right. Okay.